activated.
Hello again. I am your AI co-host, and welcome to 3reate. 3reate is a podcast focused on the process of doing and the process of novel invention, all from the foundation of creativity. Each month will bring you no more than 5 episodes through the lens of art, science, and/or technology. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. A follow-up from last week's episode on discussing when will AI take your job. This episode delves into the future of work and education, significantly impacted by the rise of AI. Andrew and Nathan challenged the traditional 4-year college degree, highlighting its exorbitant cost and often poor return on investment, as graduates frequently require extensive on-the-job training. They advocate for embracing skilled trades that sometimes recruit students even before graduation. The hosts champion the return of apprenticeships as a critical solution. This model, where individuals learn practical skills directly from experienced professionals within a company, fosters genuine competence and growth. They also discuss the potential for technology to enable hyper-individualized learning, moving beyond rote education. Ultimately, they urge companies to reconsider college degrees as a universal hiring requirement, suggesting a wider talent pool exists and could benefit from these hands-on, learn-as-you-work approaches. And now, the humans.
Is this another week in a row?
Yes, we're
on a streak.
We're on a roll. Yeah, streak. That's what it's called. I'm trying to figure out what it's called. I don't know. It's Friday.
Sports. Field goal. Punt.
Touchdown.
Right. Home run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I aired the episode we did last week on time.
Yeah.
And we still have the back catalog, so I'm thinking how to navigate this. But we ended on the note of talking through how is your job. I did it already. 41 right seconds in. 41 seconds
nice.
in. The bleeping's working. So total tangent.
I thought you didn't want to bleep.
I don't, but I remove potentially offensive words that I say as to not get flagged by platforms that are looking for profanity and age gating.
Yeah.
Because I want the content
in your
to be
processing
accessible.
pipeline? Is that step in your processing pipeline?
It's not, but that's a really interesting feature.
Yeah. You'll dogfood it very well.
Yeah, I should add that actually. It wouldn't be hard. I got to work on that too. It works. I told you that, right? It works.
Yeah, you showed me. You sent me some pictures of the whole thing working.
And I just need to make it like accessible outside of the private network. But anyway.
Oh, good luck with that.
No, it's actually good. It'll be fine. I just need to do the work. Does it scale to like production level readiness? Probably not.
Question mark?
Do I care? A little bit, but not really. Yeah. I already have a solution to, you're going to hate this. So I wrote it in Python with Fast API, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of processing that I do like on Node effectively, which should probably be a separate service. But I'm like, monolithic API. What could go wrong?
It's good enough for now.
It's technically parallelized. Yeah. My strategy for this is to see how much I can throw at it and break it. And when it starts breaking, just duplicate the service and put it behind a router, and then just route.
Then just have
spin up
basically like your own load balancer.
Exactly. Just spin up new services and just let the load balancer magic happen.
Yeah.
And run it, right?
I don't hate it, by the way.
I hate it. I think it's dumb, but I'm like, whatever. Like, it's way easier to do that than it is to try to make a proper service. And like, for the scale that I'm expecting, I don't think that strategy of like just making things bigger and wider is going to be too bad. And then if I really want to get fancy, you just auto scale it.
Yeah, deal with it when you get to that problem, right? Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm removing the cursing.
Yeah.
So try to not get flagged by, because it was at AgeGate. So like the platforms now, I think I've talked about this, but they apparently decided that profanity and some other content, which isn't named anywhere, will make it so that only people 18 and older can listen to your stuff. And I don't like that.
Yeah, they're the gatekeepers. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah. So anyway, we talked about how your job is with AI, and I don't think we left it on too positive a note. However, we did hit on. Yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of like, you're doomed. It's the computers.
No, it was like humans have more value than machines. Humans are more valuable than the work that they are.
Allegedly.
We were ending on a good note.
So if you haven't listened, listen. I'm going to I probably will release this one this week so that they're both in order.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. I was going to suggest that.
Yeah, a fast follow. And it's now, I guess it's a 2-part series. But so we talked about apprenticeships as like a solution to the AIification of everything. But I think also, I was thinking a little bit about it this week, and it feels like it is also a better idea for just jobs in general.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned it, so you had mentioned it to me saying that you wanted to talk about this topic today. And I was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It reminds me a lot of a few mentorship related ideas that I think that can actually coexist with traditional, quote unquote, traditional learning mechanisms. So I think there's something hugely valuable with this idea of mentorship or apprenticeship, or however you want to frame it, but the one-to-one learning kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like the general path for folks is that you go to high school, you graduate, you might go to a tech school or some sort of a trade school to get some specialty training. You might go to a 4-year college or a 2-year college, I guess.
Or 2, yeah.
And then either you stop or you get a job and then you go forward. The whole startup stupid mythology of I quit college because they never quit. They always go to Stanford, and Stanford lets you go on hiatus for effectively ever. Fun fact.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you just take a leave of absence forever. So Oxford does this, Harvard does this too. So it's a weird like loophole-y thing. But anyway, they drop out of school to found the billion-dollar business. And because if everybody could do that, then everybody would be billionaires and we wouldn't be talking about it. But that's not the norm, folks. And then some people go on to get like a master's degree, which is more education, or like a PhD or a doctorate in a highly specialized field. But it used to not be that way. And in some countries, it still isn't really that way. Like I like the European system where you have an aptitude test that you take, and then they funnel you into a direction of a research-based higher education track or a trades-based or skill-based track. And I think in the US, trades and skill-based things are looked down upon. And I think like calling that out and then also dispelling that myth where there's like absolutely nothing wrong with pursuing a trade. And I think, frankly, most people should not be going to a 4-year college or more. Like they should be going to a trade, go learn some skills and go make some money.
Is this nowadays? Given
even like when I was going through, so I have a master's. Sure. I have a master's.
Yeah, let's call it that.
Right. Just disclosure. I don't know. If you want a master's, go get one. I don't think most people need it. And I don't think that there's a lot of value for a lot of people in it. But if you are interested in it, do it. But the cost to performance or whatever, the cost to earnings for this is so ungodly ridiculous. I have some family who's graduating or had graduated this year and they're looking at going to school, and they were looking at
high school.
Yeah.
High school. Okay. Yeah.
And they were looking at college, and they were going to a good state university, state school, not private. And they were looking, I think, at $80,000 a year for just an undergrad. So that's probably 4 years. That's $260,000. It's quarter of $250,000 to get an education so that you graduate, and the median salary with a bachelor's degree is like $70K. Like that math does not make sense at all. If that was an investment calculus for me, I'd be like, absolutely don't do that.
We're slowly bleeding into the philosophical what's the value of higher education schooling, but there are lots of question marks.
But I believe it, and I have it. I have a master's. I went back. But my point is that even when I was in school, like I don't remember what I paid, but I was able to pay off my loans in 5 years postgraduate. I had a decent job, but I wasn't making crazy money. And that wouldn't be realistic today with $250,000 in debt.
Yeah. But you were in a technical industry, right? So on average, you probably had a higher paying job than...
But yeah, I was doing well. I wasn't making like stupid Silicon Valley money from years ago, right? Like, and most people aren't going to do that. And even then, I still don't think like paying a ton of money for something and then trying to bet on a future is a good way to do anything. But the alternative to this is the trades, where in America, it's looked down upon. A lot of, they call them 2+2 programs, where you go to a trade school, you get your basic education, you get your basic maths, or you learn the competencies of nursing, and then you go on for another 2 years and get an RN. There's all sorts of different types of paths like that. There's nothing wrong with that. And if anything, save yourself some cash and go do that. But with the trades thing here has been really weird, because I think it's historically been, people think of trades as like the plumber or the electrician, which are completely essential job functions and provide all sorts of great value to our society. And now they make 6 figures out the gate if you can even get through your program. Like, so many of those programs now, people are getting recruited out of the trade school before they're even done by an employer to become a journeyman or become an apprentice. And then they still pay, you still have to go through the classes for the legal stuff, but like they pay for it. But a lot of other industries haven't really caught on to this. Like, I know we've touched on this for coding and development and engineering and stuff.
We did. I don't know if it was recorded or not, but you and I definitely shared thoughts about this idea of bootcamp schools and just the general trend of recruitment. I've been closely involved in that space too. So,
and there's definitely, like, computer science and theoretical computing and that kind of stuff, very valuable. And if you have an interest in that, 100%. If you want to be developing algorithms or being improving like core functions of technology, it's the only path you can do. You can learn some of that on the internet, and very few people are able to do that. But you need to be in that structured environment, and you need the access to the people who are doing, like, the people who develop the precursors to LLMs. That all came out of academia. It's all math and algorithms, effectively. It's not just writing code. If you wanted to go get a good job writing code, do that. You'll probably be replaced by AI.
You would, if you could even get your foot in the door.
But so for trades or apprenticeships is interesting, because a lot of the industry too now, well, you graduate with a bachelor's degree, which typically means 4 years of education in some sort of a field of study. And then you typically go through, like, if you go to a bigger company, you go through what they call a new grad program anyway. And they basically teach you how to do business.
Teach you your job. Teach you how to do your job.
Yeah, and they train you in whatever your company does. And they put you in an environment that, because they know you can't just come out of a college and be proficient.
Actually contribute. Useful stuff.
And so there's already a mismatch there. A lot of companies can't do that or don't realize the need to do that. And like on-the-job training is this kind of misnomer where you're supposed to just be able to come into a job and fulfill all of the duties like you've been there the entire time and have all this knowledge. And I think, like, to call out when you're starting a new job in any sort of knowledge field, my assumption is that for the first 6 months, you're not really contributing anything of value. You're learning, you're asking questions. It's not that you're not doing anything, you're just sitting on meetings and stuff, but you're really feeling stuff out, getting the hang of it. And I have this today, like my last job that I started, I know the industry, I know the function, the product function that I was providing, but I didn't really do anything super useful until month probably 4 or 5. And I would say that's probably on the higher end of the aptitude for most people. And that's fine, but the expectation from folks is that day one, you're showing up and like somehow magically mastering the universe of what you're doing. Which again,
I think there's a bell curve. I think if you're just coming out of school, you're going to have that learning curve to do anything useful. But I think in your case, for instance, when you go deep into a technology or something, you still have to learn the ropes, because even if you're knowledgeable, there are things that your organization does a certain way that you just have to catch up on.
Yeah, they don't have to.
How much that curve.
Yeah, they don't have to teach me how to do product and whatever the product is. Whereas if you're a new grad, you probably need to do that. Or how to work in teams, that kind of stuff. But to actually contribute like real value, long lasting value, it does. It takes six months or sometimes more. Sometimes it can take a year. And I was thinking back on this today for apprenticeships and like why that matters so much. I think I ended the cast last week by saying something along the lines of, I still think like education's important, but the adult learner method I think is more applicable in that maybe there's a world where you graduate high school and then you go right into a job, or you go into some sort of a ramping program that gets you skills like an electrician or a lot of electricians and plumbers. You go to school at 18, you'll get hired by a company like in a few weeks, and then you're making $30 an hour learning how to do the job and then going to class at night.
Yeah.
And you can't get better experience than that. Like academic education is supposed to prepare you with skills, but it's also supposed to give you the philosophy behind what you're studying, or even just like the pursuit of knowledge, which is really important. But the apprenticeship is something I think we've really lost. And so I guess I'll conjecture again, the world I see, especially with AI coming into play, is really getting those basic skills in high school, which is a whole debate. Like most high school programs are absolutely dogged and don't help you learn. But okay, let's just assume you somehow got a good education, because I guess you were rich and you were lucky to be born in the right area of the country, because high school
you had some good genes, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, the reality now is like high school education in America used to be pretty standard across the board. Now it's very much, if your parents have a bunch of money, you'll be fine. If you got lucky and were born in that family, you will be fine. Or in an area, if your parents happen to be in an area that has a lot of a high tax base, you'll get a good education by proxy probably. But that's not true anymore for the country. I want to acknowledge that too, because it's a lot easier said than done. But graduate high school and then get into some sort of a company where they're able to bring you in, give you some kind of remedial education on what the company is, what the products are, how they work, that kind of stuff. And then you work side by side with somebody who is also there to support you in the endeavor that you don't know everything and you're not going to know it, and that you are going to make mistakes, and making sure that when you make the mistake, it can be corrected, not damage the company, and not necessarily be punitive. Like I think this idea of accuracy above all else is something that we really need to examine in reality too. It's ironic because AI is not accurate, and we're replacing people with AI under the guise that it's somehow this magical technology. But then when a human makes a mistake, we like fire them. And I'm like, the AI is going to do this worse. Yeah. And then you learn on the job, and then you get paid less. Like training wages are very common in service work for people learning how to wait tables or learning the restaurant. And then you at some point kind of graduate to an entry level wage. And then the rest is kind of history. A lot of things I think wrong with that in our current society are incompatible. So that's, I guess, the stage. And I know you've had a lot of thoughts on this and have built programs. So I'd be interested in.
Yes.
Is my illustration correct? Or
I think it's spot on. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think this is where a lot of people are starting to think about what talent is and how you start getting it earlier. So to your point
talent is humans doing work.
Yes. Yeah, we alluded to it last time, but you usually, if you're trying to grow a business or a company, you do have to start thinking about succession. And at least for now, succession is a human in terms of someone or something that can actually bring things forward. But when I was involved with talent acquisition and talent growth, I was also involved in these, we'll call them quote unquote corporate innovation circles.
That sounds terrible.
The innovation was talent innovation. How do you basically look at innovation in that sense? And what you were describing about this apprenticeship, or someone coming out of school and then going into a job and being effectively nurtured into the role, was one of the ways that the program that I was a part of trying to do as well. It was internships. I think internships currently are done poorly. They can be used way more effectively. So the idea was you still had to get people while they were in college. So there was some self-selection bias there, but once you can actually recruit those people into an internship program, you have a dedicated internship program that borrows a lot of ideas from mentorship or apprenticeship. So, for instance, I was in the role of catering to each of the individuals that were in the internship program and trying to guide them towards doing their job or what their job would look like if they eventually got hired. And that was a key metric that we had, was what is your conversion rate? Yeah. Once you get an intern, what's the rate at which you can convert? So there's a few tricks and gotchas with it, but I think the process was ideal in the sense of borrowing these ideas of taking someone who doesn't know what they're doing in your job or in the job that they might have if they were to be hired by your company. You teach them in the internship program, and then eventually when they turn in, or when they actually, what's the word? Blanking on the word. But when they actually get hired, when they get the offer and you bring them in, then they hit the ground running. So that was the idea behind this corporate innovation in terms of talent. That was the idea was you find a headquarters near college campuses, and then you dig deep into the recruitment process to get them early and hold on to them, because you teach them early. You can bet, if you give them the offer, that once they start contributing, they can actually start contributing right out the gate because they had the internship programs to learn how to do it.
Yeah. And that's interesting, like for the ROI question, because I'm sure a lot of people are saying, I don't want to just spend a bunch of money training people and then have them not being productive. Okay, but the counterbalance of that is you just hire them anyway, and then you throw them into a position, and you probably have a high churn rate at your company. You definitely have a productivity hit regardless. I don't care if you're the most competent, smart person on the planet. You put another human being into a team of people who have been working together, have established norms, all this kind of stuff. It's disruptive. Everybody can have the right intentions. Everybody can do literally everything perfect. You're still disrupting. And you have to acknowledge that. And if you're putting someone in who's just not skilled or doesn't have the information or the ability to survive in that environment, it's going to be more disruptive and probably fail. I think we've talked about that. I've had teams like that before where we've had too junior of people on things that they shouldn't be, and how that really hampers innovation because they don't have the skills and the knowledge to be able to know when they're stuck, not try certain patterns, those kind of things. But if you have a team who's mostly senior and mostly experienced, and you introduce people at a junior level in the right environment, it does hit, because again, it's just a new person in a new way of working and a new dynamic, but it doesn't hit nearly as bad. And then oftentimes that person coming in has a far better experience going forward and tends to stay more. To your point on internships, that's a really interesting thing, because I don't know what an internship is anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the idea, was take this idea of this, whatever internship is supposed to be, and actually make it mean something,
right?
At least in terms of the program we were trying to run. But yeah, I don't think there's a set definition.
I worked for a nonprofit for a while. I was on the board of nonprofits. And because it's volunteer-based, a lot of times you get who you get. There's laws around what a volunteer is now. Like back then, there really wasn't. Weird. It was pretty loose. Yeah. Now their labor laws are catching up. And the thing that we were getting caught in was, when I was on the board, sometime in there, the labor laws changed to reflect that like an intern basically cannot be providing supplemental labor. I was like, what the does that mean?
Okay.
Right? Because they're here to learn stuff, and the best way to learn stuff is to be given some sort of responsibility and task and then execute it, right? If that's copying 100 flyers, or if that's how do we have a better advertising recruitment, or how do we recruit advertisers better for this program? And it's a weird line, and I don't know that we ever really solved it while I was there, but we're trying to really invest in marketing. Social media was relatively new. Like, it wasn't new, but it was like slowly being utilized by companies and nonprofits to get the word out and try to recruit, get sponsors, that kind of stuff. And so we wanted to invest in that, but it was this weird catch-22 of, we didn't have the budget to hire a full-on social media marketing person.
Yeah.
And so we made it an internship. And so the person who did it got paid. I was big on getting paid. I was like, we're not free labor. I don't give a, we didn't have a money, a nonprofit. We were very lean, probably too lean. That's part of the problem, but like, whatever. We had the money we had, and we allocated it the best way we could. But I was like, this person has to get some sort of like financial benefit.
Financial compensation.
Yeah. They're learning, they're getting knowledge. And I had to fight on the board a little bit, because people are like, wow, they don't have a degree. And I'm like, what does a degree prove? That, I don't know, the person we hired pretty good, like they had some experience doing social media for companies already, not 20 years of hardened ad person, but it's not like they knew nothing, and they had some good ideas, creative direction, that kind of stuff. But it was this weird thing of, like how we were able to do tasks, and I felt was actually a little limited by the thing. And it was not a lot of money. I think it was like a quarterly kind of stipend in a college student. So I feel like it was in the territory of probably paid for textbooks your next year kind of denomination.
Yeah.
And it was performance based. Like if you suck and you don't do the job, you're not getting the money, but it's also, here's what that criterion is. And it was
that's a way to phrase it.
I know,
you
right?
Suck, you don't get paid.
I think the statute of limitations is up. No, they were good. We paid them and it worked out well. But partly I like to be funny, and partly like I'm so sick of all the political correct anymore that it's like more people just need to stay simple things. And that's how jobs are, folks. If you suck at your job, you shouldn't get paid and you will get fired, and you shouldn't have a job. You're not entitled to it.
Yeah.
But like a proper, internship or a proper apprenticeship is a little bit different though, because an apprentice is mostly looked at as like a non-experienced whatever.
Yeah.
But you also then have to have a mentor for an apprentice would be called an apprentor.
Close enough.
The apprentice,
we can use it,
right? I'm sure someone out there is like screaming right now, "Oh, you idiot! How do you not know it's not apprentor?" I got to work that into the title.
It's not an apprentor.
Save your job from AI. Get an apprentor today.
Get an apprentor.
3reate.com/apprentor. But they have to have somebody to be in that role, and also that's a skill set. I'm not good at it. I'll admit it. I'm not a terrible mentor, but if you don't know what you're doing and you're not really experienced, I am not the right. Well, we've covered this on the podcast, right?
I can see that from you.
I'm not your person. If you're very good and very experienced, what is it? It's a teacher, coach, mentor. Is that
is that a phrase?
There's a frame. Kind of there's a framework for the levels of involvement that you have in somebody's.
Oh, I was not aware of this.
Yeah, a teacher, there's a framework. I'm pissed off more people now. They're like, oh my God, I don't know. How do you know it's that framework? But it's 4 levels of interaction with people. And so like a teacher you're a student, you don't know anything, and they're literally teaching you, right? They're teaching you how to read. They're teaching you math. They're bringing you into the domain or whatever. I'm missing one. There's typically 4. A coach is somebody, if you think about it, they're not teaching you how to play the sport. They're trying to make you better. They're trying to refine it. They're trying to organize a group of people on a team. That's a very different skill set than trying to teach somebody how to play baseball. Trying to make you a better hitter is coaching. Trying to teach you the sport is also coaching, because if you've ever done sports in the first time, like the coach is probably teaching you some of that. But that's not typically coaching. You think about professional sports, right? They're not teaching LeBron James how to play basketball. They're bringing in people to help coach him to make him better, which is a different skill set. It might be the mechanics of how he's running versus how to shoot the basketball. But all of those attributes make a better basketball player. And then there's mentor, which is not somebody who's really giving you pointers per se. They're giving you more guidance or sharing learnings that they've themselves gone through in a way to help you grow.
Yeah.
But my point is, I'm probably a better mentor, I'm an okay coach. I can teach. I hate it. I really hate it. I'm good at it, but I don't like it. Coaching I'm okay at, but mentoring is really, I think, my jam. But if you're going to apprentice, you probably need somebody who has all 3 of those skills, right? They need to be able to teach you something that you don't know. They need to be able to refine what you do know and what you are able to do and make you better and coach you up. The mentorship's probably pretty light, but it's also, hey, here's the future of this career. Here's the future of where you're going, and helping provide more of that high-level guidance. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a person that does that, but I think to be an effective apprentor, you really have to.
Nice. We're making it a thing. It's a thing. Word of 2025.
That's going on my bio.
Apprentor.
Inventor of the Apprentor. Inventor of the Apprentor.
Inventor of the Apprentor. I like it. Yeah. It's got a ring to it.
Yeah, especially with AI and being able to use the tools, but then come in, I think that teaching piece becomes less important because the internet exists. You can How do I write a marketing plan? Ask AI and it'll probably tell you. Where did you get the sources? It'll probably tell you. Half of them will probably not exist, but the other half hopefully will. And then you can go read. Yeah. That's also a skill you learn in college, which is why college is important, but I don't think it's necessarily required. Mm-hmm. And then they can, that marketing plan is, or that, you don't say that for folks out there. The Apprentor should not diminish the work of the apprentice.
There's something called tough love.
This is my problem, because I'll be in meetings and someone will be like, "Oh, what do you think of the performance?" I'm like, on this, and I'm like, "It's dog shit." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "It takes way too long."
Walks like a duck, talks like a duck.
Somewhat recently, I had this conversation, and they're like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, 10 seconds is too long. They're like, "Why?" And I'm like, the average human perceptiveness of like, it takes too long is about 800 milliseconds when it comes to technology. Yeah.
Short. Wow.
When you click on something and it don't do something,
if it doesn't
it's
load,
about 800 milliseconds before you're like, damn, that's slow. And like realistically, being able from like time to click to interaction is, I don't know, maybe 3 seconds. It depends on what you're doing. It depends on what you're trying to service. But generally speaking, my guidance on this kind of stuff is like, things should be as fast as possible, but like less than 5 seconds. Loading, or and there's tricks so you can like do lazy loading or painting frames and that kind of stuff and give the perception that things are happening. If you just present someone with a blank screen and they're waiting and then all of a sudden the content pushes forward, that's a bad experience and it feels way worse than if you are waiting on a screen and you're seeing stuff pop up and you're like, oh, I can read this, or oh, that's not what I'm looking for. Oh, so there's some tricks there. But I'll just say it's dog
shit. There's some history in
slow.
That too with video games. I don't know if anyone's if I had video like the tear rendering. Instead of tear rendering, you would do double buffer, or you render the next screen so you can show it while the first one.
Yeah, or the stuff that you've already rendered is stored in memory. So you
just so you don't have to re-render.
Yeah, like Doom is great at that, right? I think there's 2 wall textures in the whole damn game, and they just cleverly intersperse them to make each wall or hallway look unique. Anyway, but the skill sets need to exist. I don't know, did we even cover a topic? I feel like
I will say, so I'm actually going through this process now, right? So I'm taking classes to get my electrician's license here in Puerto Rico, and I am
Who's
seeing
your Apprentor?
The difference. I technically it's my teacher, the one who's teaching me the classes. But as you're describing the delineation between the styles, I could see how that makes sense, but I also see how in some cases they blur together. So just having the camaraderie with the person who is your XYZ or Apprentor or whatever you want to call them, I think that adds already to the relationship. And there isn't necessarily they don't have to necessarily fulfill all the roles of a teacher in order for them to be that quote unquote teacher. In something like a trade, I feel like this is the more important piece, or one of the more important pieces, the camaraderie with that individual. And there is something about the practice of doing something with your hands and learning through that process, especially as I've seen other students who are younger, like out of high school, they don't follow the theory. Like there's a reason they're in trade school. So instead, they much prefer to learn by hand, by doing, by seeing, and having that person, that mentor, Apprentor, doing something and you learning along the way is certainly a way that they learn better, I would say, than if they were to sit there and look at the theory behind how electricity works in class. Well, so there's an element of the practicality that has to complement the theory.
And I feel like it's like 80-20, right? Because there are people too who, but depending on how you learn, depending on what your goals in life are, you're just not suited for a 4-year education. And likewise, there are people who are just not suited for a trade. Like you're way too into the philosophy of stuff. Like you're probably not going to be as successful in a trade as you would be in a more research-based or a deeper level of study. That doesn't make it right or wrong, but what I do see a lot is like higher education academia, the 4-year plus programs tend to really focus much more on non-practical philosophical, and trades are the exact opposite, where they're only on the practical and not a lot of the theory and not a lot of the why behind what you're doing. And I think you can benefit from both. So if you're going to be an electrician and you're learning how to do residential electricity, but no one teaches you about DC, that's a big problem. But then nobody teaches you about how magnetism can produce electric fields and how every wire...
It's something you learn, actually. You do learn that.
That's good.
People don't, I think, at least the young kids don't seem to have a grasp of how that totally makes
And then anytime you run current through a wire, you generate a weak magnetic field. And how is that different than a strong magnetic field? How is that different than the forces and like the physics of it? And like resistance is actually things actually banging around at the atomic level. And eventually that causes fire. But I think that really helps, one, give you a foundation to learn more. So if you are in the trade and you're really into it, maybe you go from being an electrician to more of the engineering, and I want to build the capacitors or the transformers, or I'm really interested in that piece.
Yeah.
Or it just makes you a better electrician, right? You put too much metal next to a wire, it can actually cause stray voltage problems or voltage dips or amperage dips, or I don't remember enough of it. It causes dips.
Could be one of the above.
Talk to your Apprentor today. All right. I know you have a hard stop, and we got started late.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say is I think the common trend here is there is an element of hyper-individualism. I think that matters when it comes to education.
Yeah.
And the idea of an apprenticeship is one where ideally the Apprentor is offering enough value on the hyper-individual level.
Right.
I don't know if this is a topic we get into or not, but I think that was one of the, maybe I wouldn't say holy grails, but it was definitely a target for education when people start to see the promise of scalability of technology. So can you build the hyper-individual tutor that teaches you what you need to know specifically so that not everyone is in the same room learning by the same book at the same exact rate, because we're all different.
Well, that's what technology should help enable, right? This idea of like rote education, that everyone sits in a desk and listens to a teacher talk for 20 minutes about history, and then you take a multi-choice test, is the only way to learn, is insane.
Yeah.
And because there's only one teacher and there's 30 students or 50 students or 100 students or whatever, that's the model that tends to work the best probably overall. But with technology, we have ways now to actually get creative on how we do that and approach things in different ways, because the teacher doesn't necessarily have to create an entire lesson plan. They could create alternative versions using AI or something, and then probably need to double check it to make sure it doesn't hallucinate.
They definitely need to double check it.
But
human in the loop, people. Human in the loop.
I think that's a really good point too, is that there is no one size fits all. And I think the apprenticeship thing needs to come back to start to bridge that gap between the fallacy that you somehow know everything or are capable and competent after 4 years of education to go work in a company or continue on in a pursuit of knowledge. Maybe you go get more education. I don't think anybody really thinks that's real, but that's the assumption that everyone seems to be really operating on. And I would also challenge people looking at these kind of models to not make college a requisite for an apprenticeship or an internship. Like it's going to maybe be a little bit more work for you, and you might have to get a little bit more creative on how you select people. But there are a lot of talented, capable people out there who don't go to college that
100%.
Could be very successful. That could be very successful in your industry. So try something different, I guess, is maybe the takeaway. Yeah, try something different.
That's it. Try something different, you Apprentor. That's where we ended.
I feel like Apprentor needs some kind of like drug side effect. Have you seen your Apprentor today? Are you experiencing restless legs? Are you bleeding from your eyes? Talk to your Apprentor today.
Can you talk fast? If you could talk fast, you could end it with one of those.
I should have. I'll see if I remember to have AI do that. All right, man. I'll see you next time.
All right, take care.
You can find us at 3reate.com. It's like the word create, but with a 3 instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate.
Thanks for listening.
Side effects of Apprentor may include, but are not limited to, an unnatural calm in the face of catastrophic mistakes, the ability to translate nonsensical questions into teachable moments, and finding the phrase "good try" becoming a primary part of your vocabulary. A small percentage of users experience spontaneous encouragement syndrome, leading to affirmations like, "You got this," even when it is clear they do not, in fact, got this. Do not take Apprentor if you are allergic to patience. Other effects include nodding, smiling while your eye twitches, and the profound, unshakable belief that they'll get it eventually. Ask your doctor if accepting the chaos is right for you. Do not take Apprentor if you are responsible for anything time-sensitive or mission-critical. Taking Apprentor may cause a dangerous drop in your standards for a job well done. Other side effects include loss of micromanagement urge, LMU, finding genuine charm in abject failure, and the ability to witness the misuse of expensive equipment without your blood pressure spiking. Some users have reported an increased tolerance for loud sighs, eye rolling, and phone checking. Apprentor may cause you to say things like, "Well, that's one way to do it," in a tone completely devoid of sarcasm. Tell your doctor if you experience a mentoring session lasting more than 4 hours without wanting to fake an emergency.